The bold and the beautiful spoilers for Thursday, August 21st, hint that Luna Nozawa's disguise will deceive Will Spencer when she pretends as Electra Forrester in bed. Deacon Sharp could tell Will was too inebriated to continue celebrating, let alone go home. Will wanted somewhere to collapse right away, so Deacon directed him to an extra room with a bed where he could sleep it off. Will is still quite out of it, so he's fixated on the fact that Electra Forrester left the party too soon and is hoping she'll come back. Will also noted that Electra's mask was unique, so he'll identify it and assume the incorrect thing now that Luna is wearing it. Of course, Luna will be content to let Will believe she is Electra if it means getting what she wants. Luna has long dreamed of going to bed with Will, so she'll be overjoyed when she finally makes her move with him. Will is going to yield to Electra, and believe she has changed her mind about this being their first night together. In actuality, Luna will be having her way with Will, so he will undoubtedly have some disorientation in the aftermath. Until then, B&B spoilers suggest Electra will meet up with Ivy Forrester, who will be astonished to find she left the party early. Will, on the other hand, was already getting too inebriated, so Electra will be relieved that she ended the night early and avoided anything more heated. Electra has waited this long, so she believes waiting a little more won't be an issue. Unfortunately, this will provide Luna the opportunity to carry out the final element of her plan and entice Will into her trap. Luna will be satisfied with herself after spending the night with the guy of her dreams, but this will turn into Will's nightmare in the following episodes. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, Luna's ploy will bring Will a lot of unpleasant news, so stay tuned for more updates on the drama. Will sat on the side of the bed, his tie unbuttoned and his jacket tossed on a leather recliner. He was attractive in a subtle way, with sandy hair that fell just short of disciplined and a jawline softened by tiredness. He'd been drinking, but not enough to lose his edge, just enough to blur the distinction between suspicion and want. Luna knew this. She'd been watching him for weeks, studying the cadence of his voice and the way his fingers tapped out a restless pattern when he got nervous. She'd also discovered about Electra, the woman Will loved, or believed he loved. Electra, with her keen wit, electrifying laugh, and tendency of bending her head just so before saying something lethal. Luna had perfected the tilt. She'd practiced it in front of mirrors, dimly lit bars, and in the privacy of her own mind. The mask wasn't just a cheap disguise. It was in the way Luna moved, spoke, and brushed her fingers against Will's arm as she brought him another glass of bourbon. It was in the stories she'd memorized and the half-truths she incorporated into her performance. Will believed Electra was away at a seminar in Paris. Luna had made certain of this by sending just enough misinformation into Electra's assistant's email to keep her over the ocean for another week. It was time for Luna to step into the role and become the lady Will couldn't stop thinking about. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Will's low, harsh voice disturbed the silence and drew Luna's attention back to the room. He was now leaning forward, elbows on knees, and the glass dangled from his fingers. His eyes met hers, and Luna felt the weight of her deception. Not guilt, guilt was for amateurs, but the pressure to keep the illusion. One incorrect phrase, one mistake, and the entire game may collapse. "Like what?" she questioned, her voice falling into Electra's husky cadence. She cocked her head just so, offering a smile that was both challenge and invitation. "You're the one staring, Will." He laughed in a short, wobbly voice. "Perhaps I am. You don't seem like yourself tonight." Luna's heart didn't miss a beat. She had trained it not to, but her thoughts became sharper. Different was risky. There was a crack in the mask. She crossed the room, her heels quietly clicking against the floor, and sat next to him on the bed. He was close enough to feel her warmth without appearing desperate. Electra was not desperate. Electra was a hurricane, full of confidence and sharpness. Luna leaned closer, letting her breath brush against his ear as she murmured. "Different how?" she mumbled. "Better? Worse?" Will turned his head, and their faces were inches apart. His eyes were a tempest of their own, gray and restless, looking for something Luna couldn't afford to let him discover. "I don't know," he answered. "It's as if you're both present and absent. As if you're holding something back." She laughed, perfectly imitating Electra's sharp and biting laugh. "You are imagining things. Perhaps there was too much bourbon." She reached for his drink, her fingers brushing against his as she placed it on the nightstand. The touch lingered, intentional, bringing him back to the present. Or maybe you're just not used to me being this close. That did it. His look softened, the distress fading into something warmer and more pliable. Luna recognized that look. She had seen it in a dozen men before Will, but none had meant as much as he did now. This was not about love or lust, though both were valuable instruments. This was about power. Will was the key to something bigger, something Luna had been after for years. A ledger, a name, and a truth buried deep within his family's vast company. Elektra was the only way in. And Luna was Elektra for as long as it took. The room appeared to shrink around them, as the city outside faded into a distant hum. Will reached for her, his hand finding the curve of her waist, and Luna allowed him to bring her close. Luna emulated Elektra's confidence, leaning into a touch without hesitation, but her mind was elsewhere, calculating and watching. His fingers caressed the edge of her garment, and she rested her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Too steady. He wasn't lost yet. He said Elektra, and the name was a knife. Not because it wasn't hers, but because he said it in such a way that it seemed to imply everything. Luna had heard her own name uttered like that once long ago, by someone who was unaware of her abilities. She'd buried that memory, but Will's voice brought it to the surface unexpectedly. She shoved it down, concentrating on the roll. What? She inquired, letting a taunting tone slip into her voice. You're acting like I'm a stranger. He did not respond right away. His hand remained on her waist for a time, and Luna wondered whether she had made a mistake. Had she missed something in Elektra's demeanor? A phrase or a gesture? She'd looked into everything: Elektra's social media, her emails, the way she wrote her name with a flourish. Luna had even broken into Elektra's apartment, walked the floors, and wore her perfume. She had been Elektra in every manner that mattered. But Will's quiet was a warning, a spark of mistrust that may turn into something more. Then he grinned and the moment ended. You're not a stranger, he continued, his tone softening. You are just more tonight. More everything. Luna exhaled a breath she had not aware she was holding. She leaned in closer, kissing him. It was Elektra's kiss, bold, shameless, and with just enough restraint to leave him wanting more. Will responded, his hands drawing her closer, and Luna surrendered to the moment, not because she wanted it, but because it was required. The mask needed to hold. Luna's mind raced as they moved together, with the bed squeaking slightly beneath them. She'd prepared for this, anticipating every touch and word. But there was something disconcerting about Will, something she hadn't anticipated. He wasn't simply a mark. He was human, flawed, vulnerable, and real. She had expected a man motivated by ambition or avarice, like the others she had outmaneuvered. But Will was different. He adored Elektra, not as a prize or a conqueror, but as an individual. And this made him dangerous. Hours later, when the city was quiet and the bourbon bottle was empty, Luna lay alongside him, her head resting on his chest. Will was sleeping, his breathing calm and even, but Luna's eyes were wide open, staring up at the ceiling. The mask remained in place, but it seemed heavier now. She'd gotten what she came for. A keycard slipped from his wallet while he was busy and now tucked into her purse. It would lead her into his office and the files she required. The ledger was so close that she could almost feel the weight in her hands. But when she listened to Will's steady and trusting heartbeat, something changed. Luna had played this game before. Deception, seduction, and betrayal. She was good at it, possibly the best. But this time the lines were blurred. She had expected to feel nothing and walk away clean. Instead, she felt the ghost of her own name and face press against the mask she was wearing. She crept out of bed, careful not to wake him, and dressed quietly. The city lights created long shadows across the room, and she took a minute to stand over him and watch. Will moved, whispering something that could have been Elektra's name, and Luna's chest clenched. She turned aside, grabbed her pocketbook and keycard, and exited the apartment without looking back. The elevator ride down was a journey toward clarity. Luna was not Elektra, and she never would be. She was a thief, liar, and shadow. Shadows were unable to feel. She strode into the darkness, the metropolis swallowing her completely, and reminded herself that the job was all that mattered. The ledger represents the truth and power. Will was simply a means to an end. However, as she moved away, the mask felt heavier than ever. The next morning, Luna sat in an inconspicuous coffee shop across town, her laptop open and the keycard burning a hole in her pocket. The location was deliberate, crowded enough to blend in, yet quiet enough to contemplate. She sipped her bitter, sharp espresso while scrolling through the encrypted data she'd retrieved from Electra's cloud. Most of it was pointless schedules, emails, and a few love letters Will had sent, which Luna perused with scientific detachment. However, there was one file buried deep that suggested a ledger. Not by name, of course. Will's family was too cautious for that, but in code. A reference to the vault, and the date tomorrow. Luna's pulse increased, but her expression remained calm. Tomorrow. She knew the schedule was tight, but this was getting close. The ledger held the key to everything. Proof of the deals, bribes, and blood money that had fueled the Carver empire. Will's father, Jonathan Carver, had been untouchable for decades. A titan of industry with a grin that concealed 1,000 misdeeds. Luna had been hunting him for years, ever since his machine chewed up and vomited out her family. The ledger was her way of exacting revenge, justice, and destroying everything. The Bold and the Beautiful recap for Wednesday, August 20th, reveals that Electra Forrester left the party early, while Deacon Sharp secured a place for inebriated Will Spencer to crash. Sheila Sharp tried to calmly Finnegan down while on the phone, acting as if Luna Nozawa had simply gone for a walk. However, Sheila's wheels were turning, and she suspected Luna may have slipped away to attend Will's party. Sheila went seeking for Luna at the party, but she managed to stay out of her grandmother's sight. Drunk Will also took the chance to thank Sheila for the party, which he was extremely pleased about. Sheila spoke with Lee again later and acknowledged she couldn't find Luna, but she tried to persuade Lee that their granddaughter wouldn't do something reckless. Will kept drinking what he thought were vodka sodas, but they were actually prepared with the 180 proof booze that Luna had been warned against using. The bartender reminded Luna to get rid of those stuff, so she said she was going to take it to the warehouse later. Over with Will and his party guests, there was some discussion about Electra's mask being unique and immediately identifiable to him. It seems that B&B was setting up Will to recognize this mask later. When Electra was not around, Lainey flirted with Will and kissed his cheek. Luna also eavesdropped on a group talk about her and pretended to be pleased with her return, despite the fact that everyone assumed she had vanished forever. Will kissed Electra away from the crowd and asked her to come home with him, but she declined. Electra informed Will that she wanted him and believed she was prepared, but she did not want it to happen tonight. Will was plainly too inebriated for it, and Electra preferred a romantic night for just the two of them. Electra decided it was time to leave, so she removed her disguise and went out. Although Will grumbled and contemplated pursuing Electra, Zen Forrester Dominguez advised him not to. Deacon also noticed that Will was visibly intoxicated, so he gently stopped him from purchasing more drinks and escorted him to an extra room with a bed to sleep. Will wondered where Electra was and hoped he could rely on Deacon to get her to come there, so Deacon quipped that he'd get right on it. Deacon took off after directing Will toward the bed and settling him in. Luna discovered Electra's mask and put it on before standing at the doorway, looking at Will. Luna beamed as she finally had Will to herself. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Will's night is about to take a dramatic turn, so stay tuned for more exciting news.